All right, next up is for section 1.1. There are two types of problems that you should expect to see. And looking here at our bullet points as well, you want to be able to name points, lines, rays, and segments with proper notation. So you will most likely expect to see a diagram in which I will ask you to identify, similar to the way the questions are asked in number 2. You should also be able to do problems with union and intersection. We've got one problem here, and there are more of these in your textbook or in our notes. So let's run through number 1 and number 2 where these answers come from. And as I talk through them, because with naming points and lines, there's usually at least 2 ways. Sometimes there's more because there's multiple points. I will also point out, proper alternate names. So for this first one, this is an intersection problem, so we are looking for overlap. So it is ray CE intersect with AF. So when I highlight both of these, I want to look at where the section where I overlapped and highlighted the same and what it formed. In this case, I highlighted over AC. So the overlap here is segment AC, or we could switch the endpoints and say CA and all the space in between those. So that is the geometric element formed by the overlap. So that's why for part A, it is AC, or CA is perfectly appropriate as a name. Next up for part B, we have ray CE again, so I'm actually just going to leave that there. And then we want to union it with AF. So same thing again, could have left them all. So what I want to look at is when I combine them, what new geometric element did I form? Now, we are only going to be working within the set of what we already know. Points, lines, rays, segments, angles, and possibly triangles. So it's not going to be something wonky, so you get to pick from the selection of what we already have with what we formed. So in this case, with ray CE, I already had a ray, so it already extends infinitely one direction. Adding in segment AF, if I combine them together, it just pushes the ray further to the end point of F. So now I still have a ray, I still have an infinite direction going through E, but it starts at F. So the union of these would be ray FE, or you could call it ray FA or FC, but F always has to be the letter that goes first. Okay, next up, I'm going to shrink this highlighter. We have segment EA union with AC. So we're taking the two things, we are putting them together. So look at this. Along a line array, I take 2 small segment pieces, I combine them together. What do I make when we take 2 segments and put them together? We make one longer segment with the end points of the end of the green, which is E, and the end of the yellow, which is C. So we make segment EC, a longer segment out of 2 smaller ones. And that is EC, or you could switch the endpoints and call it CE. But those are the only 2 options because we have to talk about our endpoints as the 2 points when we are referring to a segment. All right, for part D, we have ray AB. And I know it looks like it is just a segment, but we can extend it, that's fine. Union with ray AF. Okay, so when I think about taking these 2 highlighted pieces and what new geometric element do they make of the list of what we are comfortable with, I have 2 rays that meet at a common endpoint. That is the definition of an angle. So I just formed an angle. We could call this angle BAC. We could also call it angle CAB. We could call it angle FAB, angle FAB, or angle BAF. All are appropriate names for this because we picked points on the 2 different rays, and in the middle we put the vertex. A has to be in the middle every time for this. So that's part E. And then lastly, AB intersect with CD. AB, CD. For the intersection, I want to see where those 2 segments overlap and cross. And in this case, there is no overlap. These 2 segments do not intersect. So this would be the empty set, the circle with a line through it. All right, so that is number 1. If you want more examples of these, look through your textbook, look through your homework. And especially with Notability, the great thing is you can download a blank copy again, retry it, check your answers, and see if it's correct. Okay, number 2. In all possible ways, name in all possible ways the line containing A, R, and D. So looking at the line that contains points A, R, and D, looks like it is this line right here. And we want to think about it as extending past points A and points D. So we could pick A and R as the 2 points on the line. So that would be line AR. I could switch those for RA. I could also, along the same line, pick A and D because they're all following the same line. So that's line AD. We could do line DA, or I could pick R and D as my 2 points. So RD or DR. So there are 6 possible ways that you could name this line. All of them are referring to the same geometric element. It's the same line in every case. On the quiz, you only need to pick one. I have all the options listed, so as long as you pick, unless if it says name all possible ways, please do that. But if it just says name the line, you pick one way. As long as you pick 2 points on the correct line, then that's the correct answer. Part B, name the sides of angle ABC. So angle ABC, we want to start at A, go through B, and out through C. So it's this angle here. So angles are made of rays. So they both have their endpoint at B. They go through A and they go through C. So that would be ray BA and ray BC. If you put segment, that's okay in this, just because I know that the diagram looks like a segment, but we do say that the sides of angles are made of rays, even if it doesn't show the infinite arrow extending past it. All right, part C. What side do angle 2 and angle 4 have in common? So again, once we take a look at where angle 2 and angle 4 are, and this time I'm going to use the pen. This is angle 4. And then this is angle 2. So looking there, I had to trace down the same segment each time. They share a side, and that is side FD. So this would be segment FD, or you could say DF, as the sides that they share. All right, part D, name the horizontal ray with endpoint C. So we want to go to C as our endpoint, and then from there we want to go horizontal, so that would take us this direction. And what other point do we cross through? It happens to be B. So that is ray CB, and that is the only possible way to name it. There's no other points there, so it has to be ray CB. BC does not say the same thing. For part E, this is just to get you thinking. There's no correct answer. There are answers that are better than other answers since it asks us to estimate. So your answers might vary, which is why I specifically did not give them to you. But I would say for angle BAD and for angle 2, you should have picked measurements that are going to be less than 90. To me, those angles appear to be acute. But for angle ABC, that appears to be an obtuse angle. So I would, hopefully you picked an angle between 90 and 180. All right, 2 more. F, our angle is FCD, which is FCD, different from DCE. Well, let's see here. We want to check for same vertex and same rays or segments making the sides. DC all the way through E. No, those are 100% the same angles because rays extend infinitely. What we care about is that it's the same, the points are along the same ray. They share the same endpoint, so those are the same angle, even though we named it with a point further along the ray for the second one. All right, lastly, G. Which angle in the figure is angle B? Well, this is what we've talked about multiple times, so hopefully you have this here, that angle B, if we said that, could be many of them. There are 3 possible angles. It could be what is labeled as 1, 3, or A, B, C. So angle B is not a great name because it could be many of them. And so we're not sure exactly which one. So I want you to keep that in mind with naming angles, that we do want to be precise if there are multiple angles at a point. So B would not be a great name for that angle. All right, that is the end of section 1.1. Again, you do have your textbook with lots of problems in 1.1 if you want to look at some more examples of these.